Hello there, future or current geographers, and welcome to the Mr. Sinn channel. If you're watching this video, it's because you are about to take AP Human Geography, or you're thinking about taking AP Human Geography, or maybe you're taking Human Geography. Regardless of what you're doing, that doesn't matter. If you're watching this video, you're interested in understanding exactly what is this course all about. And I want to start this video off by letting you know you should get ready for one of the best social studies classes you're ever going to take. This social studies class doesn't deal with stuff in the past. We're dealing with how the world works. And by the time you're done with this course, you're going to understand economics, politics, agriculture, population, all these different things, how places interact, how cultures and religion. I could go on and on. And this video is going to help you better understand exactly what you're getting into. So get ready for one of the best classes you're ever going to take in high school or maybe even college. Now, don't just take my word for it. I'm just a teacher from Minnesota who also makes YouTube videos to help students understand all the complexities of this course. This video actually is going to kind of show you exactly what to expect. And I'm not just going to sit here and lecture you. I'm not going to pull up some notes. Instead, let's talk about COVID-19. Yes, COVID-19. In 2020, it changed the world. And it can actually connect to every single one of the units that you're going to go through in AP Human Geography. So let's check it out. So in talking about COVID-19, we have to first talk about the Earth, which was Wuhan, China. And the virus spread through contagious diffusion. Now, when we talk about a global scale, which eventually the virus impacted, we could look at these global cities, these world cities, entrepôts, or also these break of bulk points. Countries that had more access to wealth originally got impacted more because they had more citizens traveling. And these cities turned into nodal regions with the virus entering them and then spreading throughout, again through contagious diffusion, impacting the surrounding settlements, and eventually became a global pandemic. And all of this connects into economic prosperity, it connects into trade, travel, it connects into also our diffusion and region. And that's what makes this class so cool. This class is all about understanding how people interact with the place they live in, how the environment impacts people. How does place A and place B connect? How do they trade? How do they impact each other? Why do some religions form in some parts of the world but not others? Let's go back to our COVID-19 example. We've actually addressed a couple concepts from the first unit of this class, but one of the things that COVID-19 did to the world was governments had to make some big decisions. They had to start doing shelter-in-place orders, stay-at-home orders, or completely locking down, shutting down economies. And the virus spread quickly, especially in densely populated cities. And that made people become fearful. Now, at first when this happened, there was a big speculation, especially in the United States, that, hey, we might see a big baby boom because all these people are going to be stuck at home, they're not going to have much to do, and, well, you can put 2 and 2 together, and eventually in 9 months, we'll have a bunch of babies. However, we could actually look at data and statistics and look at some of the past recessions we've had to see that we actually are going to maybe be seeing a baby bust. Brookings EDU actually found that we might be seeing 300,000 to 500,000 fewer births next year. And they based these population predictions off of the Great Recession and also the 1918 Spanish flu. That's almost 500,000 less people being born in the United States. You might be thinking to yourself, well, so what? Why do I care? I'm in high school, college. I don't care about the births that are happening today. But that's the beauty of learning human geography. See, as geographers, we start to study this stuff. We look at population data. We see, okay, if we're having possibly 500,000 fewer births this year, that means in about 25 years, we're going to have a lot less people in the workforce. And we're going to need more people working. And if we don't have people working, if we have less births, we're going to have less people paying taxes, less people paying into Social Security. And as more and more people start to retire, our dependency ratio goes up, and that puts a bigger burden on society. So we're going to have to look at immigration and other matters to try and make up for this loss of a workforce for our society. Actually, already today, the U.S. has seen a record low growth rate. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2018 to 2019, the U.S. population grew through natural births by a mere 0.5%. Actually, a lot of jobs we are actually filling due to immigration and migrant workers, which COVID-19 has actually brought to a standstill. Many countries have implemented strict travel restrictions between other countries. Oftentimes, they're actually just closing their boundaries altogether and preventing immigration and migrants and travel between other countries, which is great for stopping the diffusion of the virus. However, there is some unintended consequences when we look at it, especially in terms of our supply chains and our workforce. That has some big issues for all countries. And if these disruptions continue for the long run, we might start to see more issues arise. For example, in agriculture, where the Center for Strategic International Studies found that for the time being, countries such as the United States have plenty of food, but prolonged disruptions to migration could reorient agricultural product and value chains to the detriment of food security, especially in the developing world. And it's not just agriculture that's being impacted. Other industries like healthcare in the United States might also be impacted as well. In the United States alone, 30.2% of doctors were born in another country, and 16.4% of nurses were born in another country. If we have prolonged closure, we're going to start to see less and less healthcare professionals coming into the country to work. And that is the opposite of what you want during a pandemic. And it's not just international migration. We're not just talking about between two countries here. We're also seeing shifts in the patterns of people in their own countries with intra-regional migration. As more and more cities are experiencing counter-urbanization, people are starting to leave these urban areas that are densely populated in favor of going to the suburbs, which are more sparsely populated, and they have yards and they have more activities you can do outside, particularly during a lockdown. Realtor.com, for example, found that home searches in the suburban zip code rose by over 13%, while demand for housing in urban areas shrank drastically. And as it becomes more clear that this virus isn't going away anytime soon, we're starting to see the cultural landscape change. Parking lots are being retrofitted to become outdoor restaurants or parks in some cities. We're starting to see plastic barriers go up in all stores, and this has led to cultural resistance, at least in the United States, with this big debate forming over the role of government. Should the government actually be mandating masks, or should that be an individual right? Is it up to you to decide if you close your business, or should the government shut down the economy? Even schools, there's a big debate in the US right now. Should schools remain closed for the fall, or should they be open? And we haven't even addressed religion and how that's been impacted by this virus, as people have had to change how they worship. Weddings, funerals, all these different traditions and customs that people have had to reshape in a very short period of time, all because of this virus. As geographers, you'll get to learn how to understand how all these things connect. You'll be able to understand how systems work and what happens when these systems become challenged. For example, if we go back to agriculture quick, we could look at the Midwest, where farmers actually had to dump over 3.7 million gallons of milk every day. And this is according to Dairy Farmers of America. This was because demand fell so sharply due to the closure of restaurants and state economy. Cows still had to get milked regardless of the actual economy being open or not. And because there was no one buying it, farmers had to just get rid of it. Our supply chains are set up in a very specific way. It can't just go to someone else. And that's because of the systems that we have set up, the systems you'll get to learn about. And it wasn't even just milk. We started to see the whole food supply chain take a hit. And that's because the virus disrupted on so many different levels. We started to see meat shortages in countries around the world. That was because that these meat factories, especially areas that produce at a very high volume in this industrial food system, well, you have all these workers that are really close together. The virus would get into one plant, people would become infected, and the plant would have to close. Companies even like Wendy's ran out of beef. In the United States, President Trump had to sign an executive order to try and keep meat plants open and running. And speaking of government, all these different governments around the world all handled things differently. That's another topic that you'll get into in geography. We could see states that had federalism actually broke down the response of COVID on the local level, the national level, the state level, regional level, all these different aspects based on how they wanted to handle it. While states that had a unitary system allowed the central government to make all the decisions, and the regional governments had really no say at all. And this highlighted the different pros and cons of different political systems around the world and their ability to be able to respond to this virus. And since we're talking about countries, we could also look at the global supply chain. China was one of the first countries to close down, but China accounts for a lot of the world's manufacturing. So this put a strain on global supply chains. And we started to see store shelves, well, empty as products started to run out. And it wasn't just China that closed down. The entire global supply network started to struggle with increased demand, decrease in supply, and we started to see prices fluctuating. Countries didn't know necessarily what to do. And this could actually change where we produce products. Some countries might actually see more companies return home. And only time will really tell what's going to happen to these supply chains. But the fact that toilet paper became the meme of how to flex on people in 2020 should show how hard these supply chains were hit. And it wasn't just everyday household products. Gas fell to an all-time low as well, as people were no longer driving. As geographers, you'll get to see how all these systems are connected. Maybe you've already noticed there's a lot of overlap between these units. Everything in our world is connected. You'll get to understand how these systems were created, how they evolved, how they've changed, and how they impact you. You're going to start noticing things you've never noticed before. As you take this class, you're going to look at a variety of models and theories. You're going to look at a bunch of different scales. You'll talk about your local community. You'll talk about your state, your country, the globe. All these things you'll be able to see how they work, how they operate, and how, more importantly, they're all connected. And if this is something you're interested in, I would recommend, well, taking the course 1, but also consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Throughout this year, I'm going to have videos on all the different topics that you're going to learn about in this class. And you can actually already start learning before you even take it. My first playlist for this class is Unit 0. I talk about FRQs, multiple choice tests, the themes of the class, mistakes students made from past years. This channel is going to help you make sure that you can do well in your class, and you can maybe earn some college credit from taking the AP exam at the end of the year. So the real question now is, well, what are you waiting for? Let's start learning AP Human Geography. My name is Mr. Sinn. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, geographers, I'll see you online.